Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask, Learn, Grow, the show where the Reef team answer questions and share updates and insights from the digital marketing industry. I'm joined today with Matt Dove, who's one of the leadership team here at Reef. And Matt's going to be talking about B2B marketing. So I guess to kick things off, what are some important things to consider with B2B marketing that kind of set it apart from B2C?
Yeah, I think there's a few big differences between B2C and B2B marketing to be aware of. So I think just because it's B2B, it's easy to think you're communicating with organizations and not marketing to people. And that's a real danger. You're still marketing to people, but it's both individuals and sometimes groups of people as part of a decision-making unit. So there's often a high degree of product complexity too. And as well as that, far fewer customers than with, say, B2C marketing. So the upside to this is really specific market segments, which means you know exactly who you want to reach on an individual level. But the downside is smaller audience numbers, which makes sort of data-informed decisions quite difficult. And some types of ads are harder to measure, or even run, really, particularly where minimum audience sizes are required. So sort of retargeting, for example. And there's lots of competition for the attention of relatively few specific groups or individuals in B2B. So it can be quite noisy for your customers and prospects when they're sort of going through that buying journey. I think you really need to just understand your customer and your customer's customers actually in B2B to be really effective. So it's important to spend time really getting to know your customers. I don't just mean the types of businesses you're selling to, I mean the people within them.
All really good points. Next question, how would you actually go about doing that? Because that's quite a big task, isn't it? Or a complex task.
Yeah, so I think it depends on how you go about it and understanding what you need to know about the people you're trying to persuade. So firstly, as individuals, where are they? Who are they? What's the situation? Their career goals? Where do they get the news, their information? Where are they educated? And then secondly, as members of a stakeholder group, they may be the lead person researching the buying process for the buying process, but they could also be working with other people in their team or across a number of different business functions, so finance, R&D, procurement, so on. So I'd say starting with some simple but well-constructed surveys would be a good place to begin. But ideally, get out there and sit down or video interview, obviously given current circumstances, these people, and just ask a bunch of questions about what they do, their jobs, their organizations, what sort of frustrates them, what delights them. I mean, it's really pretty invaluable stuff, and it's inexpensive and pretty easy to do as well. So look, I guarantee you'll learn more about your customers and who they are and what they want doing that sort of thing than anything you'll get from web analytics or CRMs. And in fact, McKinsey did some research and found that there was a CMO somewhere who learned from doing that and sort of really speaking to people and going through that process, that 70% of their marketing budget wasn't being spent in ways that actually influenced the purchase decision. So that's a huge insight.
And another thing that you get from actually speaking to your target market and your customers as well is you'll start to pick up on how they actually describe their problems, their products and services, and the lingo that they use and words and language that they use. And you can take all that information and kind of pull things out to weave into your own copy and your messaging, so that it's a match and it improves the sort of relevance and connection. So yeah, 100% speak to people to get that data.
Yeah, that's right.
So we've talked about the importance of qualitative information there in sort of speaking to and surveying the customers, but data's important too, isn't it? Would you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important to get that order right. So in my experience, whenever I've tried to make sense of data without having actually spoken to the people the data's about, I've always felt a disadvantage. So I think context is everything, and there's a bunch of stuff you're not going to know, as well as lots of gaps. If you're only either looking at quantitative data or not really understanding who or what it actually represents, which is people. So obviously, this doesn't solely apply to B2B, but the important thing here is that unlike B2C, you don't have this vast array of third-party reports and research and insights. And because there are so many niches within B2B, it's really hard to find meaningful third-party references, particularly in Australia, I think. So it's really easy to come unstuck as well in trying to be too scientific with it. And we often find that it's not always possible anyway, particularly with as an industry. I think we're overly obsessed with attribution and trying to calculate ROI and everything. But just because we don't have that sort of scientific edge to it, it doesn't mean that what we've got is invalid. And that's really important, particularly for the smaller and mid-sized brands to think about, I think. So really, again, understanding the people you're aiming to reach can help counteract some of the challenges with data. And I think those are the two things, getting the order right, and just being pragmatic with how you approach it.
Yeah, good advice. And I think I agree with all that too. So just in regards to the data, regardless of sort of how much you have, which I guess is a different issue, how would you approach data then in this context that we're talking about?
Well, what gets measured gets managed, right? So that's good. But as I said earlier, there's always going to be gaps in your knowledge if you're only looking at the quant side of things. So I think it's important to pair your measurements with what you know about your customers when you're working out how to reach and engage with them. There's no point in making a bunch of metrics, KPIs, if they don't actually provide relevant insights. So for example, I could measure how many people watch the technical product demonstration video on my website. Now, I may assume, because we spent lots of money on making it and it looks pretty, that it's a key part of the conversion journey, because 30% of people completing a website conversion goal watch the video. But if all of my customers say to me in interviews and surveys that they found the videos confusing and uninformative, and I have no way of attributing that video and the viewing of that video to actual customers and sales, which is often the case in long cycle, B2B sales, it's probably not worth making that a KPI, even though a data analyst might disagree because of what the numbers say. So I think getting that order right helps inform your understanding of what people want, why they might behave in certain ways, and what's worth measuring versus what's not.
And experience plays a bit of a part in this as well. Like what you've described, I guess, if you've been in the game quite a long time, you'll have trained your eye a little bit more to make judgments and critical thinking about things like this, rather than sort of just take things at face value. You'll question and dig and test and sort of pull qual and quant data together to sort of make your informed next steps as to how to progress, really.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to make assumptions when you don't have a view on things. So, I mean, it is best practice to have qual and quant together. But, it's sometimes easy to perhaps look over some of that stuff, particularly, when there are deadlines and there's other pressures there. But yeah, doing that, going through that process can save a lot of time and money.
All right, cool. So we've talked about customers, we've talked about data. What else? Is there anything else?
Yeah, so I think there's another important bunch of people you want to talk to as well, and that's customer service and salespeople. So whether that's in a company with 5 people or 500 in those roles, it's equally important. Now at this point, I like the idea of sort of reverse engineering the process from what an ideal customer profile looks like, what the majority of quality sales conversations look like, and what a sort of premier marketing qualified lead looks like. So you want to get to know what people are asking, what they want to understand about your products and how they become customers, but from your own people, because we've understood as much as we can from the market. Now it's time to understand it from the business point of view as well. Like I say, to be able to run this research with, but anybody that's frontline that's actually dealing with customers is important. So you'll probably start to find a bunch of discrepancies here, which is perfectly normal, but it can provide some real opportunities for marketing to do its job, and content, I think, particularly in B2B, is a great way to bridge that gap. I think it's also really important to remember you want to be trading off against volume. You need to be realistic between the ideal customer and the size of the market, because there isn't this endless supply of perfect customers. And in fact, I think there's often relatively few in most scenarios as well. So if we gear up for perfect, as in the ideal customer profile, we'll probably fall short and fail to connect with the majority of the opportunities in the market. So once you've been through the process of speaking with those internal teams, you'll have a good idea of really what the conversations look like, where they're going, the destination, in terms of the sales element of it, and also I suppose where the opportunities exist with the market, and what marketing can do to tee up the sales conversation.
This is all super valuable stuff, and just to add, we're not talking about doing anything sort of hugely time consuming or complex or costly. It's just speaking to people in the main, and all of the people who were sort of saying to speak to, you should have quite easy access to, and shouldn't take too much time and too much sort of resource to obtain this super valuable information.
That's right. So there is a process to go through with that. You do need to make sure you're documenting it in the right way, and that you're able to draw some insights from it. I mean, that is a discipline in itself, but yeah, like you're saying, Scott, it's not overcomplicating it. It's more the fact that you've done it, you document it, and you're making your decisions based on this.
Asking the right questions, of course. I guess that would be a different topic entirely, what we could tangent off on. But to keep it focused, let's move on. All right, cool. So how do we sort of pull all this together then? What's the kind of next steps to bring it together into sort of moving it forward and using all these insights and data?
Yeah, I think it's as much about creating a really enjoyable experience as anything else for the customers and prospects. So obviously any self-respecting brand doesn't want to pump out spammy content or endlessly retarget people with buy now and fear-based messaging. And obviously in B2B, unless you're sort of taking a fire sale approach, there's not much longevity, I think, in that in a lot of cases. So at Reef, what we do is use our model, the customer conversion journey, and what we aim to do with that is develop our marketing ecosystems. So the ads, the channels, the copy, the content around the journey. So the idea here is that it really connects with prospects because it's actually based on their journey, and as we've just been speaking about, it's based on what they want, at least as much as we know about it anyway. So as I said, there's always opportunities to bridge the gaps between where the customers are heading and also what the business needs. So it's a case of making sure all of our ads and content and search visibility and so on work together to deliver the result for the business, as well as that improved experience for the customer. Over time, we can then optimize between all of the stages. We can test and experiment with different channels and really provide endless opportunities for improving performance. So obviously there's a lot of work in that. I don't mean to make it sound easy. I don't mean to make anything that we've spoken about sound easy, but what we're really aiming to do is build competitive advantage. And I really think engineering the journey is how you can achieve that and grow as a result.
Yeah, fantastic advice. That kind of wraps up today's call. We've covered a lot. It's been a pleasure speaking to you and covering all these wonderful insights around quantitative data for B2B, and then kind of pulling it all together into actionable sort of next steps. So if anyone's got any questions about this or digital marketing in general, feel free to send them in, and we're always happy to help. If you'd like to see us answer a particular question or cover a topic in a future show, just let us know and we'll see what we can do. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified of when the next video is available. Apart from that, thanks everyone for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.